On this episode of Hot Rod Garage, I'm still not riding that thing. Welcome back to Hot Rod Garage. I'm Tony Angelo. This is Lucky Costa.
Hello.
And in this episode, we're finally going to revive our lightweight racer, the 50MG. Now, this thing is an interesting build. We built it to show just how important power to weight ratio is. Basically, we took this old 1964 MGB racer and turned it into a rocket ship by just plugging in a Ford 250 horsepower V8.
Just plugged right in.
Well, we crammed it in. The thing about this car is it's a beat-up old race car. The suspension is way too weak, the brakes barely work, and it is a death trap. Well, we're gonna make it finally work, okay? We're gonna make the suspension handle, we're gonna get the right spring rates for this heavy engine, we're gonna make the brakes work, then we're gonna take it up to Willow Springs on a sweet road course and show you guys how to adjust your racing suspension to make it actually work.
I might drive it then.
Yeah.
Plenty of runoff space.
Yeah, there's a lot of sand out there in the desert. All right, there might be some gas in it. We're missing a battery. Radiator cap is gone. These will probably blow off on their own.
They will. I got the battery handle.
Lucky's got an Odyssey battery. These things are cool because we're put in a race car and they're good with shock and vibration resistance.
They're also sealed.
Yeah.
Which means you can put them in the compartment with the driver. You could carry this on your lap. So here's a quick tech tip for you. Get an old water bottle, make sure it's clean and dry on the inside. Punch a hole, fill it full of gasoline, and then put this hose inside there. Instead of you trying to pour gas into the carburetor, potentially making a big fiery mess, you can just squeeze the bottle and it will displace the gas through the hole into the float bowl and fill the float bowl up before you start the car. If you look through that sight window right there, you can see the float level. You see the gas moving? That's your tech tip for today.
It looks like our throwaway fuel pump is ready to be thrown away.
It's disposable.
We'll be able to see if the engine works. If it fires up, we're good. We'll put a real Holly pump in there later. He's all there. So this is the underside of our 1964 MGB. Sway bar is super bent and off center. They torched the leaf springs to lower this thing down. They added a panhard bar and they had traction bars that we didn't even bother running because we didn't get all that stuff last time. So it's just a bunch of bolt-on band-aids on top of a really basic leaf spring suspension, and we're gonna fix it by
cutting it all out and throwing it in the trash.
That's right. Oh, right. You son of a...
As you can see, the brake line is neatly zip tied up here where it does not affect anything. The funny part of that is it was never hooked up. The whole time up on Mulholland Highway, no rear brakes. So I just popped off the brake line, put a cap in the line up here, pinched it off right there, and we went up on the hill. Safety third.
This is the rear end we're gonna put into our MG. It's right out of the Ford Mustang 5.0 that we stole the engine and trans from, so we know it's gonna support as much horsepower as that thing makes. So this is a triangulated 4-link rear end, which means that the arms go at different angles to make sure that it won't move side to side, and it also moves up and down. We're gonna convert it to a 3-link, which works a bit better, articulates a bit better. It's that articulation that makes a 3-link better than a 4-link for road racing. If you want a deeper dive on how a 3-link works, check out episode 48 where we put one in my CUDA. All right, so we've got our rear end positioned in place, and we're just sort of trying to figure out how we're gonna mount our 3-link and where it's all gonna sit, estimate ride height, all that sort of stuff. We're gonna have to clear out some metal above it, but we think we've got it pretty well sorted out. And then I'm gonna show you exactly how to figure out where to put these links and how it's gonna affect the way your car handles.
Will you show me too?
Yeah, just keep your eyes open. Lucky cut out a big access panel on the floor to clear things out of the way, and he's got some gussets he's making.
Fire in the hole!
That ought to hold for a minute. First thing we're gonna do is weld in a 1x2 inch piece of box tubing to become our upper third link mount.
Going in, cover me.
Once that's all done, we'll have a nice upper mount for our third link that's super strong because that undergoes all the stress of the suspension moving the car forward.
I feel good about that.
So now it's time to start mocking stuff up in space. There's a killer program out there. It's on this patui.com website. Somebody named Dan Barcroft made it, and he's a genius. It lets you figure out the lengths, the heights of everything. You can see instant center, roll axis, roll center. So frame end, lower link, that's 9. Sure, tire diameter is 23. Tire rolling radius, punch that in. All right, perfect. And then as you change the different variables, it'll model where each link sits. Just ballpark, we're looking for about 60% anti-squat and somewhere in the 0 range for axle roll rate, or what is it?
Axle rows, yeah.
Axle rows is dope. Roll axis angle, around 0, which is a nice easy thing because if you put the lower arms parallel to the ground, you want it with 0.
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Could have just asked me.
We could almost get away with using these Ford mounts. They're sort of in our way. They're for the old triangulated 4-link, so they're not straight, which isn't the end of the world. But they're sort of just in our way. We're just gonna have to cut them out. Now it's time to weld on our new brackets, which are super adjustable and will help us dial in that anti-squat. And we figured out that the mounting points for the old leaf springs in the car are 37 inches across. We're gonna weld these on 37 inches across, and we'll be in business. So what we use for the upper link on the rear end is a Perry Johnny joint. It's a big cast piece, you can weld it in, and then it does have a little bit of Delrin in there, so it's not super harsh on the street. All right, we've got our rear end in place. The brackets are welded onto that thing nice and secure. And I've got tube adapters and Heim joints from QA1 that we're gonna use to make our lower arms. Lucky and I measured it. We're gonna cut both of those pieces of tube to 14 inches and weld these tube adapters on, and we're gonna have lower arms in no time. So I just threw a couple tacks on here. We're gonna basically just not weld this stuff until everything is totally done and we're happy with the length, because taking these off once you've got them welded on the tube adapters is impossible.
Pretty even.
All right, we've got our lower arms mocked up and in, and I'm working on this upper arm. This is a stock QA1 2005 up Mustang upper link. It's just an off-the-shelf piece that I use in my CUDA, and it's awesome because it works great with that Perry Johnny joint, but it turns out it's a little bit short for what we need. So I'll use both these end pieces, and I will just wind up making a longer tube in the middle. First thing I'm gonna do is weld the tabs for the arm to the frame itself, and then I'll lower it back down, get a measurement, and make that upper arm. And then all of our arms will be basically done. Bolt it in, full on third member. So that's it, that's all our 3 links done. The geometry seems pretty legit. I'm gonna check it over just in case anything moved while we were putting it all together, but I think we're on the right track. We're in a fast little race car.
So right now Tony's on the phone ordering some more parts for the MG. I'm sure it's some purist company that's gonna sell us some great parts to restore this vehicle. I wonder if he knows what's going on in the background while he's talking to him on the phone. So I just got done clearancing a couple of spots in the trunk, and I use the term trunk loosely because there's not much of it left. It allows the third link to come through the floor, and it will allow these QA1 coilovers to be installed very easily without even going under the car.
We got an idea of how far down our panhard bar is going to come. We're going to integrate that into our new shock mount. So it's going to mount the shocks and it's going to mount the panhard bar. It's all going to be figured out ahead of time. We'll weld everything to that bar, then we'll weld that into the car.
So while fabricating this rear shock mount slash panhard bar mount, we got to use the notcher. You figure out the angle, put a 1/2 inch, 1.5 inch hole saw in there, and it cuts it to mate right up to the pipe with little or no gap if done correctly. Now let's MIG it together and stick it in the car.
So we've got our new shocks from QA1 in place, and now we're gonna put in our shock slash panhard bar mount, tack everything up, pull the shocks out, weld it all together, and then we're just about done with this thing. QA1 gives you extra shock spacers, and we're gonna use these while we weld to keep everything aligned properly. Look at that. That looks square. Pull it back and I'll tack it in. So we've basically disassembled this super universal pan hard bar kit we bought on Summit. We're hacking out the frame mount. We're gonna weld it to our pan hard mount, and I'm gonna shorten this bar so that it all works out.
Good times. It's like date night.
So that's the rear end on the 3-link, moving like it should. And that just about wraps up making your own 3-link, jamming it into a 1964 MG like we just did. The only thing we have left to do is make some small spacers, put the right bolts in, and figure out a sway bar solution. It's all straightforward. We're gonna go to the front end and do a pre-made coilover conversion, so that should be way easier.
Please.
So we bought this MGB as a ex-race car, and we dug into the suspension. There was almost nothing upgraded in a way that made any sense. It's not usual that you can just stick your hand in and pull the coil springs out. It's not a good sign. Besides that, the whole front end is basically stock. So we went to Moss Motors and we got their coilover kit. It's pretty sweet. It replaces the upper and lower arms. These have what are called lever shocks up front. So instead of having a linear shock that works with a rod inside of a case, it is sort of a box and it bolts right to the upper arm, and it's super weird. So we're gonna get rid of that and convert it over to a regular linear shock. They sent us over some shocks. Our buddies at QA1 replicated those with spring rates that we like, so we can run QA1 stuff all the way around. So what they want you to do is bolt this template plate in to your upper lever arm mount and drill like 65 little baby holes, and then knock it out. But we're just gonna hammer it out with a plasma cutter.
I'm either gonna cut a hole in this or cut a hole in my arm, one or the other.
Try for both.
Something's getting cut, that's all I got to say.
So the Moss Motors kit replaces that upper arm / lever shock with some billet blocks and 2-piece upper arms and a place to bolt the coilover in the middle. So the other part of the kit is to replace the central part of the lower arm, which is just a spring pocket, with this insert, which is now pick up a coilover shock and spring combo.
Okay, so the upper and lower control arms are installed. The QA1 shocks are installed. I see that these rotors have seen an enormous amount of heat. Do you know anything about that?
No, couldn't be me. Huh. It's probably me holding on for dear life.
They're still smoking from the last time you drove them.
Terrible. So because we had to move the steering rack forward and down a little bit in our MG to clear the Ford 5-liter engine, I had to now move the sway bar. I built these spacers, and I'm gonna make a much shorter end link to connect it to this lower A-arm. All right, so that's it for the front sway bar. I lowered the bar down to 4 inches to clear the motor, and then wound up using a much shorter end link to connect it to the control arm, and it should be good to go, and hopefully Lucky's done with the back.
So I just got done fabricating a little rear sway bar mount that doubles as a floor reinforcement because the fuel cell is going to sit back here. Fix it with fire. There's a lot of things on this car that are going to break. However, the rear sway bar / floor reinforcement mount will not break. Maybe.
All right, so Lucky's buttoning up the rear suspension, just a couple odds and ends, making sure everything is tight, and we're good to go back there. Now the car's gonna be a 4-lug regular bolt-on wheel in the back, so I went out, found a MG Triumph dismantler in Ohio that sent me these regular bolt-up 4-lug hubs so I can run a regular wheel in the front too, so they'll match. And what's nice is I also took this opportunity to go to Moss Motors and finally upgrade the terrifying brakes on these things. They have a cool slotted and drilled rotor package that comes with EBC pad green ones, which are pretty burly. So between these front brakes and rears that actually work, this thing might be somewhat safe to drive. So those sweet brakes are finally on the car. One last thing to make sure this thing actually handles. I went up to my buddies at Falk and they sent over a couple of 205 5015 RT615K. These tires are awesome. And you know what? It's time to take this thing to the track.
We're gonna paint it black and hit the track.
In the 5 LMG, and this thing is a handful. Whoa, whoa! It's like a little go-kart with a V8 in the front. So we've got our 5 MG together, and we dragged it out to a legitimate race course. This is the street course at Willow Springs. Anytime there's a car commercial with a beautiful ribbon of asphalt and a dusty desert background, this is the place. Our goal today is to dial in the suspension and maximize the handling on our little MG. All that stuff we built is fully adjustable. We want to get it dialed just right. Now, lots of guys buy racing suspension for their car and have no idea how to set it up. So along the way, we're going to show you just like really the basics of how to dial it in. We've got the tire set at 35 PSI all the way around. We've got the shock set on like medium soft, and we're going to start to dial in the sway bars. Too little bar means the car will lean all over the place in corners and it won't apply outside grip. Too much bar means the car will skate all over the place and it won't really take a set. So we're going to try to find that nice middle ground.
The idea is to get a nice visual of Tony coming through these turns. As you can see, the turn is sort of on camber and it digs in a little bit and then it gets light and there's a little on camber this way. So there's going to be some roll in the body and we'll be able to see it from this angle. So right now the sway bars aren't even hooked up, so you're going to see a ton of body roll. There it is. Oh yeah. Now look at the lean, like tires almost coming off the ground.
Man, no good.
Okay, Tony, how you feel about that?
Yeah, man, I mean, this thing feels like it's gonna flip over, dude, with no sway bars. It's all over the place.
Yeah, your inside wheel was off the ground. It looked good.
Sweet. Well, let's make it look fast.
See you in the pit area.
All right, let's head back.
That's what you call hashtag sketchy.
Yeah, no sway bar feels like definitely no sway bars. Even with all that suspension work and the springs, whatever, still all over the place.
It was leaning.
All right, so we'll hook the bars up, we'll put them on soft, and then we'll take it back out and see how it feels. But sway bars, important.
Okay, so we just got done hooking the sway bars up. As you recall, the last time we made a pass, the car had a crazy lean to it. This time, by the attitude of the tractor headers, you should be able to see that the car stays pretty flat. Let's check it out. There it is. Oh yeah.
Okay, Tony, that looked really flat.
It might get a little flatter.
Man, what a difference already. It's so much easier to drive and has way more grip. I mean, it feels awesome, but I think we could have maybe a little bit more front bar. Let's dial up the front. I'm heading in.
Okay, I'll see you over in the pit. You heard him. Looks a lot better, dude.
Way better. Way more fun to drive. Like, stays flat, isn't such a handful. So yeah, I think a little more front bar might be even better.
Perfect.
So we decided we're gonna add a little more front bar to this thing and hopefully keep the front a little flatter and add a little more front grip. This is an adjustable front sway bar. There's a couple of different holes to mount the end link in this thing. And all you have to remember is the closer to the pivot point that you mount the end link, the stiffer the bar will be. Cool.
We just moved the sway bar into the firmer position. Tony should be coming around that corner. It's not gonna be as dramatic as it was. It should be nice and flat and look real fast. Looks very luxurious, don't you think? It's almost like a real race car with tractor headers on it.
With no sway bar, our MG looks super out of control. It's leaning all over the place, it's not as fast, and it's certainly not as controlled. With the sway bar on, the car stays flat, it transfers weight evenly, and it's a ton of fun to drive. Now we're gonna get into our shocks. So shocks work in two ways: compression, which is when the car goes down, and rebound when the car goes back up. Right now we're gonna show you what the shock does, which is control the body movement of the car, and in effect also keeps the tire in contact with the ground. So we've got it set fully soft. There won't be much body control or tire control, and let's see what happens.
That's completely open, so it should ride very bouncy. That hurt my back.
That was pretty bumpy. Too soft shocks are the worst. If the car hits a big rut, it's gonna bottom the thing out, throw the car all over the place, upset the car. It's gonna kill my back. It's no fun. We need more control.
Now we're gonna set them at the firmest position. Somebody conveniently cut the whole back of the car out, which makes it really easy to adjust everything. And that somebody was me. So that is full firm right there. Yeah, see? Solid as a rock.
Ugh. All right, let's try that. Full stiff.
This should be humorous. There's gonna be no travel in it whatsoever. He goes in a turn, any little bump is gonna get that thing bouncing like a rickshaw. You see it hopping and skipping?
No good. Full stiff. No good. All right, that was terrible. My back is killing me. This thing is bouncing all over the place.
I got motion sick just watching you.
Now, the shocks working properly will allow us to dial in the grip, but also, if I stomp on the gas and the back end squats down, the high rebound is going to kind of keep it down and let me put power down coming out of a turn. And then when I jump on the brakes really hard, it's going to keep the front end from totally bottoming out and let me dial in that front grip too and then get the car turned in. Let's try it halfway all around and see what it feels like. I bet that's going to be a lot better.
Yeah, you can tell on that shot, the car was a lot more fluid, didn't bounce quite as much. I think the back's still a little bit too firm, but we're definitely going the right direction.
The car feels pretty good, but it's a little bit hard to transfer weight.
It seemed pretty fluid, like pretty smooth.
It's pretty smooth. I think the back could come down 1 or 2.
Like firmer or softer?
Softer.
I'm gonna do 2 clicks all the way around.
So we're now at 4 in the rear and I think 7 in the front.
Just so you know, the ground is not getting any cooler.
No way.
Just saying.
We all set?
Yep.
Really is working pretty good. It's fast, it's controllable. Driving the MG with shocks on full soft, the wheels are bouncing around all over the place. The car doesn't want to take a set and it's just not that quick. Driving the MG with the shocks on full stiff made the car jolt and shake, and all that force was transmitted not only through the car, but through my lower back. Once we got the shocks tuned in, the car is way easier to drive fast and it's much more controllable. All right, so we have a pretty good handling car. Sway bars and shocks worked out awesome, they're all dialed in. Another place we can get a bunch more grip and speed is in the tires, and we're gonna keep this really simple. Here's a basic guide. More tire pressure up front is gonna be more understeer. More tire pressure in the back, more oversteer, meaning more pressure, less grip. Less pressure, more grip, but to a point. So once you start dialing really down into tire pressures in the low 20s, stuff like that, you're gonna lose stability and you're gonna lose a bunch of feel because the tire's gonna kind of roll all over itself, and that's not cool. Another thing you can do to really help figure it out is you can get a cheap infrared laser pyrometer and run it across the center of your tire. If it was super underinflated, the center would be colder because it's not getting worked as hard against the asphalt. Now we're pretty close, but I'm gonna let it down a little bit, all the way around 4 or 5 PSI, just to bring the grip up in the front and the back, because again, the car is pretty balanced. You can take these rules, apply them to your car, see how they feel. The best thing you can do to become a better driver, a better tuner, is just to get time on the track. Once we got the sway bar connected and dialed in, made the shocks work and optimized those tire pressures, this thing became a rocket around the track. It had sway bars that were keeping the car flat through the turns, shocks that made sure it was composed over bumps. It turned in great, it had a ton of grip through the turn, and I could put the power down and it would just scoot out of the turns. In just a couple hours, we took our MG and made it handle sweet. So that's it for this episode of Hot Rod Garage. We turned our 5.0 MG into a pretty sweet little race car. This thing handles awesome now. We built a whole rear 3-link from scratch using QA1 stuff. It held together, I didn't die.
I didn't die.
Nobody died.
That was weird.
Thanks for everybody that made this episode possible. Holly, QA1, Odyssey Batteries, Falcon Tires. We had a blast, and we will see you guys next time. But don't forget to check us out on social media between episodes. The show is Hot Rod Garage Show on Facebook and Instagram. I'm Tangelo96.
I'm still Mobile Tech Lucky.
We'll see you guys next time.
See ya.
Car still works. Still works too.
But there's still a lot of daylight.
Good point.